Welcome back to the Money Corner. In putting tonight's show together, I've invited a group of people, two gentlemen and a lady, all of whom have had many, many years of experience in the area of pension planning, pension design. This is an area that's increasingly important to all of us. As you know, I've said many times, I'm a stockbroker and I deal with people who are primarily concerned with their years of security, and I'm also an individual who's now in his mid-50s, and I'm surprised as I talk to boyhood friends, people that I went to high school with and college, how ill-prepared many of them are. Many of them, by the way, are professional people, highly educated, very successful in their business, how ill-prepared they are for their retirement years, their senior years. When you start getting up in your 50s, I think you start thinking that way. And in one sense, I think part of the lack of preparation is the tremendous confusion that exists about really what are the opportunities in terms of pension planning, pension design. For that reason, I invited, well, two gentlemen whose company you probably know if you travel across the George Washington Bridge, a company called Quasha Lipton. They have a very modern building right at the end of the bridge. R.T. Whitman is the Vice President, Managing Partner, and Marketing Director of Quasha Lipton. R.T., welcome to the Money Corner.
Thank you.
And David Skovron is with R.T. tonight, and David is one of the senior partners in the firm, also a man who has been immersed in pension planning for many, many years. David, how many exactly?
19 years with Quasha Lipton.
You've seen a few changes in the field then.
I think so, yes.
And Christa Reddy is a young lady who is a practicing attorney. Christa, I guess you grew up in the business, didn't you? Because your dad has been in this business for many, many years. And Christa is with a pension planning firm in Ridgewood, New Jersey. The name of the firm, Christa, is what?
Professional Retirement Planners.
Professional Retirement Planning. I would like all of you to respond as you see fit. I am convinced, and my firm, Merrill Lynch, does a great deal of work in retirement planning, as you know, particularly in the field of IRAs and KEHOs, which is just becoming an explosive field now for us. But I am impressed with the change, which is more than evolutionary. I think some of it is revolutionary. It isn't too long ago that the KEHO bill was just coming into practice, I guess maybe 15 years ago. And now the IRA, everybody seems to be in an IRA in one form or another. Dave, I'm going to let you lead off, because as I think back, it seems to me many of the legislative changes that have come about in the past 10 years, 15 years, really came about because of crisis. I'm thinking of the Studebaker-Worthington case, the Curtis Wright case, and then Jacob Javits in the Senate really got in there with some legislation that impacted on all of us.
I think you're right, Phil, that the government had a big decision to make in the last 15 years, and it's whether to inhibit the private pension movement and go for an advanced and exaggerated Social Security system, or to let the private sector do its own thing and perhaps create some legislative safeguards. And fortunately for the three of us who are still gainfully employed, the decision was made to let the private pension movement continue forward and to just create safeguards in the form of the various legislative factors that we're aware of, starting with ERISA in 1974, which really tightened things up.
Okay, now, and Dave, I used you as a straight man. I had a question behind my question. Christa, RT, either one of you can respond if you like. It seems to me that implicit in Dave's comment that the government made a conscious decision to cater or lead or favor the private segment, this said something about the Social Security, the abundance of Social Security to do the job for people in their senior years.
Well, I think it's more an issue that that benefits, and in particular pension plans, are a competitive tool that companies use to recruit and retain the best quality employees. So I think it goes beyond the issue of adequacy and beyond the issue of maintenance and how the plan is going to be run. I think one has to recognize that a pension plan, and particularly in today's environment, can be the reason why somebody joins a company and or stays with a company. And to take those tools away from individual corporations would be like saying that everybody has to pay vice presidents the same amount of money and give them the same perquisites. They're very much a tool that is important to companies in the maintenance of their business.
That's from the employee perspective, but from the capital needs of the country, the total pension assets are the single largest form of investment and source of capital for this entire country. And I think that if the government had gone the other way, we would have had a much larger federal bureaucracy and not invested as profitably as pension assets are today.
I would agree with
Dave?
Dave on that. And I do think that there is some truth to it, that the Social Security just won't provide people with enough income, and to that end, the private pension system was given the opportunity to develop.
Okay, now Christa, help us get into the subject a little. Enumerate, how does one understand the private system and Social Security as being complementary and helping, in effect, a person in his senior years have a decent lifestyle?
Well,
Very basically.
I would look at them as completely distinct. Social Security is available to almost everyone. The private pension is available to persons that have received it as part of their employment package, either in a larger corporation or in a smaller corporation, something that they've set up for themselves, or the IRA for the self-employed individual, or the KEO. And those private, as opposed to the Social Security benefits, are supplementary. They are, in addition to the Social Security, they're able to provide enough monies where they feel comfortable with in their retirement years.
Phil, I think that in helping a corporation design a pension plan, Social Security is certainly taken into consideration.
Now, when you do that, that's called integrated. What is the term?
Well,
the
you're
jargon?
integrating the private pension plan with Social Security. You're effectively saying the Social Security system is going to provide a pension to everyone who's employed by this corporation. It's going to provide a certain amount based on a certain amount of wages that are covered. To the extent that that is not adequate, the company that we work with will design a plan that includes a recognition of the amount that Social Security is going to provide and effectively integrates it into the formula. A very simple example might be that a company at retirement wants all of its employees to have half of their pay as a pension, so that the pension formula would be half of your pay inclusive of some portion of Social Security.
Okay, Dave, I want to draw that out a little. What you're saying is a company says, we have John Jones who works for us and now earns $20,000 a year. At retirement, we would like John to be assured that he has at least $10,000 coming in.
Right, that's right.
Take that from there with Social Security.
And they'll make a projection that suggests that John Jones is going to receive $6,000 a year from Social Security.
Consequently, they're going to provide $4,000 a
$4,000.
year. That's all integration means.
That's all it really does. And it effectively helps the corporation who is paying for half of the Social Security benefit, and provides, as you say, a totally integrated benefit and an adequate retirement objective for the individual.
Now, it's interesting, though, that you've discussed two of the areas that are important in retirement to the individual employee, but over the last 10 or 15 years, a third area has emerged, and that is another form of either tax-effective savings or a savings plan that company would sponsor, which would be over and above what would be provided from Social Security and the pension plan.
All right, RT, describe it for us. What is that kind of plan?
Well, basically, it's a simple savings arrangement. More often than not, the employer will match a portion of what the employee puts away. These plans are very often made with before-tax dollars. In other words, you make your contributions before your income is taxed. And as a result, you more or less have a working person's tax shelter. It's not unlike...
Okay, I want to help our audience understand that a little better. John Jones, same John Jones, who will retire with $10,000 a year, his company has an additional benefit or allowance. If he will save $50 a month, they will, or if he saves $50 a month, he puts in 25 and they put in 25. Is that what you're saying?
He would put in 50 and they may put in 25. They'll match 50%. And
I see.
the match differs from different companies. Each company has its own style of designing the plan. Some matches are more generous than others based on the economy of that particular company.
Okay, now Christa or Dave or RT, but Christa perhaps, how did Congress get in this thing of picking up this new allowance for the individual that RT just described, in effect what RT said was that this is a pre-tax dollar that is being put away. So the government really is depriving itself of some taxes now. Where did that come about in the legislation?
Well, I think I'd prefer...
Dave, shall we
Well,
defer
it
to
was
you?
Section 401K of the Internal Revenue Code.
Oh, this is the famous 401K
And it was
that we hear
actually
about.
in the code, I think, for maybe 10 or
Many
12
years.
years, and somebody discovered that it would work, that whether it was put in for this exact purpose or not, it was in the code.
And was that a congressional mandate, or is that kind of a legislative thing that
I
slipped
think
in there?
it was legislated back when.
It was
And,
legislated by Congress.
And I don't think it was really, there was a total awareness of the kind of attractiveness, the impact that it would have, and certainly not on the tax revenue.
Is that the only thing we have under the 401K, RT? The savings plan you just described, or are there other allowables or other variations on that?
Well, for practical purpose, talking about retirement, yeah,
the most popular.
401K is the only real before-tax vehicle that is typically offered, through the employer. There's nothing to prevent an employer from acting as a conduit to accommodate IRAs or other types of vehicles that might be available in the marketplace.
So this is additional to those.
Yeah, that's correct.
In fact, in your example of John Jones, who's making $20,000 a year, if he concludes that he can save 6% of pay, which is $1,200 a year, 6% of $20,000 is $1,200. If this is a qualified 401K plan, his income for tax purposes will not be $20,000, but it'll be $20,000 less the $1,200, or $18,800. So that $1,200.
Consequently, he's paying less taxes.
He's paying less taxes.
And he's getting a tax-deferred
He's getting the income on that is
savings,
tax deferred.
plus a bonus from his company.
And
That's
his
correct.
Cash flow
bonus.
bonus.
In fact, it's such a good deal that there are many companies who set it up without even matching the funds and just let the employee reap the advantage of a lower tax rate, paying less taxes. But most of the
Then in turn, the money set aside is earning interest,
it's earning interest,
which is deferred.
deferred until retirement also.
And the company could set that up and let that work in an ordinary bank, in a regular bank.
Yeah,
I mean, for example, Merrill Lynch has
could
that
be
kind
with
of
Merrill
plan.
Lynch. Money could be invested with Merrill Lynch.
One of the things that I'm beginning to see, I've been operating aggressively in the area of Kehoes and IRAs as a broker, I guess, for about 15 years. Yeah, about 15. Kehoe came in when? Do any of you recall precisely? 15 sticks in my mind.
I don't recall.
Dave, you're kind of
Yeah,
the senior
it's-
citizen on the panel. Is 15 a good working number?
I think it's probably more than that, but it's
More than
it's been
15? Okay, by the way, I went to NYU, and John Kehoe went to NYU, and he's always back. He's an elderly gentleman now, and he originally got in this thing, I think, because he was a mutual fund salesman. He wanted to stimulate the growth of mutual funds, but it's just been a fantastic
Yeah.
piece of legislation. But one of the things that impresses me is that people who have been using and building Kehoe plans now for the past 15 years have a tremendous amount of money. It's not unusual for me, now it's true, I do business with a lot of professional men, but it's not unusual for me to see Kehoe plans that have $250,000 in them. And that kind of money, if available in retirement, just taking them down in the cash flow, really makes for a very comfortable retirement for a lot of people.
Well, let me just tell you, Phil, it's not unusual for people who spend an entire career, a full career, 25, 30 years with a company, if they are to participate in a savings plan, as I discussed with you earlier, it's not unusual for them to accumulate pre-tax totals somewhere in the area of $300,000 and $400,000 in addition to whatever they're going to get from other sources. Now remember, they're going to have a tax liability on a portion of that money when they get it out, but nonetheless, they can accumulate enormous amounts of money because of the effect of interest compounding and tax sheltering on the account balance.
Yeah, we're almost at the end of the segment. It's the old story. If you had a penny in George Washington's time to compound it at a low rate, you'd have a tremendous amount of money today. We're going to break for a commercial here. We'll be back in just a few seconds. Please stay with us and continue to hear this discussion. Thank you for staying with us. My guests tonight are two gentlemen from Quashnet Lipton, that very modern building up near the George Washington Bridge. Now I'll tell you what they do. They're pension planners and actuaries. R.T. Whitman, one of the senior partners in the firm, and Dave Skovron, also a partner in the firm. And the very attractive young lady between the two gentlemen is Christa Reddy. Christa is a practicing attorney, and she works for a firm that is in her family in Ridgewood, New Jersey, a smaller actuarial and pension administrative firm. And the name of the firm, Christa, is?
Professional Retirement Planners.
Professional Retirement Planning. I wasn't only trying to give you a plug, but I didn't want to memorize everything here. RT, just before the break, you were saying it's not unusual to see people who have deferred savings plans and have worked for a firm over a long period of time, 20 or 25 years, that have $300,000-$400,000 built up in these retirement plans. Recently, the Wall Street Journal had a story where they published, if you earn X thousands of dollars, here's what your funds will be in retirement. $10,000, you can expect $400 a month. $15,000, you can expect $800 a month. Dave, from the actuarial point of view, where do those numbers come from? How does the government know how much they'll be able to parcel out, particularly in these days of deficits, which...
Well, I didn't catch that article, Phil. You're saying that for an amount of money set aside now? Or
no, for a person who's earned, who's been an average wage earner over a period of years.
I suppose that what they're responding to is surveys of what pension plans are providing, and generally they'll be established with an objective that will pay somewhere between 30 and 60% of an individual's
And we can
pay.
calculate future payouts of Social Security?
We actuaries can make all the assumptions in the world, plug it into a machine, and throw out and say we expect inflation to be 4% a year, we expect investment yields to be 8% a year, we expect all sorts of things, and this is what's going to happen at retirement.
I really have to get into some of the dramatic material that RT brought me tonight. This is the kind of steak that you get at your favorite butcher shop, right, RT?
I hope you get one with a little less fat.
Okay, tell us a little about it.
Well, it's a type of employee communication. It's a technique that was used to get people's attention and to explain something as complicated as retirement. It's not an easy topic, as you can well imagine, and a great deal of care has to be taken to, one, get people interested in it, particularly individuals who are 30 to 40 years old and have not even considered retirement yet. And yet, as you can see from our discussions, the issue of integrating, whether you're integrating Social Security or whether you're reflecting what you might save in a savings plan, is very important. People have a lot of control over their retirement destiny, and the employer has to let people know exactly what tools are available to them and how to use it. And this
By
is
the way,
one method of doing
Christa,
it.
just for a moment, what the employer has to let the employee know is mandated by law now, isn't it?
Well, since ERISA was a protective piece of legislation which not only gave employees certain rights, but gave them many pieces of information which just weren't available to them before ERISA.
Now, Dave and RT, you put our steak away. Get it back, will you please?
Yeah. I think that steak's an important item, because I think what Christa is suggesting is...
Do you want to hold the steak while you tell us?
No, it's his baby, and I will tell you about his true value to the world here. But what Christa is saying is that the government said there are certain things that you have to tell people. And those things may be dry facts in a book explaining what their rights are, who they can sue if they feel that they haven't been given a fair shake. And RT, when he took over our communication department, said, there's got to be something more to it than that.
Yeah, by the way, RT's got to be from Texas, doesn't he?
Well, he's from Pennsylvania.
Is he really?
But, maybe the western part of the state, which is damn close to Texas.
Okay.
Texas.
And I think his concept was, we want these people to enjoy the benefits and understand them in a way and grab hold of them, not just give them the facts that are absolutely required. And so RT has come up with, over the years, a series of communication gadgets, perhaps, but what they do is they grab hold of the employee becomes a willing participant in the whole program, understands what's going on, and the company is then receiving value for the vast sums of money that they're putting away.
Now, I don't think too many people know that they can go to their employer and say, hey, where do I stand and what are the benefit programs like? That's a right. That's an inherent right. Now, and by the way, I assume this is not proprietary or confidential information. Now we have something from the Avon Corporation. I hope you can see that on your TV screen. Avon has their stock grant program. You hold that, RT. And here, Avon's employee savings plan. This is very attractive material, by the way. The
Thank you.
artwork is good. But in a very, not entertaining, I guess that's an inappropriate word, but in a light way, you're really trying to show people what they're accruing for their
I think
retirement years.
entertaining is, I don't think that's far off the
That's
mark.
appropriate.
I think
That people will read it if they're entertained.
Yeah, really, what you're finding here is that, I mean, let's take this out of the framework of a private employer, and let's consider the public marketplace. If your company and/or the banks is merchandising a particular service, they go to enormous lengths to advertise it, to market it. And traditionally, employers, since they had captive populations, didn't merchandise their benefit programs, in particular something like pension. And what you find happening here is that employers are now recognizing that they are spending, in many cases, millions of dollars on these programs.
sorry.
And they're getting little or no employee relations value back. So what they're trying to do is merchandise the benefits and to approach it the same way they would if they were merchandising a consumer product.
It's very important in a large corporation. From my standpoint, where I deal mostly with the smaller employers, something like this, of course, the dollars aren't there. But it's very effective in the large corporations where they're spending the money, and as you say, they need the promotion for the dollars that they spend.
It's important that the employees really feel a part of the company. If you have 20,000 employees scattered around the country, it just may be a name. The company may not mean anything to them. And to the extent that they feel more a part of the company, I'm not suggesting they're going to work a heck of a lot harder, but it is a healthier atmosphere.
Yeah, Dave, I'm not sure that people here in Palisades Park and Fort Lee appreciate just how prestigious your firm is, and I'm not here to give plugs. This is not a commercial program. But Quashta Lipton is one of the leading actuarial firms in the country, isn't it?
Scratch one of.
You think
Well,
the...
I feel that when we look at our clientele, we're heavily geared
Would
towards
you be willing to
large
name some of
corporate-
your client list?
Well, Merrill Lynch is one.
Yeah, I
of
know
them.
that. But thank
Very
God.
good.
You guys better be good. You've got my future in your hands.
Bank of America. We feel we have Merrill Lynch on the East Coast, Bank of America on the West Coast, and any financial institution in between that wants to join with us.
Yeah, I know you've got companies like Grand Union. And
Grand Union,
Becton
A&P,
Dickinson.
Becton Dickinson, Allied Corporation out in Morristown, New Jersey.
You'd be hard-pressed, we offer a number of services outside of just pensions, and you'd be hard-pressed not to find someone in
major
the Fortune
company.
500 using our services
Yeah.
in one or two areas.
Yeah. Now, Christa, would you describe, that covers the Fortune 500 companies, but what is the function or the purpose or the day-by-day business of the pension administration company like yours, which really services smaller entities?
We get involved right at the very beginning, either through a recommendation by another client or an accountant, and we help the individual or the one-man corporation, the 10-man corporation, design a plan that fits their needs, their objectives, be they primarily for a retirement savings or for the immediate tax
So
benefit.
you might have as a client the man who owns a neighborhood candy store.
We do have a client just
And
like
you'll
that.
design a retirement plan for him that'll be custom made for him?
Custom made. We analyze all of the options available to him. It's working with figures and with his personality also to say, does he want to be mandated to make this contribution, or does he want more flexibility, in which case we go with a different type of plan. We work with the people individually, which you can do when you work with a small entrepreneur.
Could you give us a ballpark figure? Let's say we have our favorite candy store man who sells newspapers and cigarettes, and he comes to you and he says he'd like a plan. Ballpark, what do you think he's going to have to spend in order to get a plan that's going to go through the IRS?
Depends on whom they go, but I would say you can go to a brokerage house which sponsors a prototype plan, which they then adopt.
Prototype means it's available for everybody.
It's available for everybody without submitting it to IRS. Sometimes there are no costs involved at all. If you do submit it to IRS, there may be several $100s. If you're talking about an individually designed plan with the services of an attorney, you can spend between $1,000 or up to $3,000, even higher, depending on the services that you obtain.
It's one of the things that I'm curious about. I'm looking at one of the design programs that Quasha Lipton brought, and for example, it says to the employee, Louise Doe, rather than John Doe. That's a good variation. Your situation today, during 1984, the company paid $10,000 for your benefits. Your health care was worth $1,800. Dental plan assistance, $191. Well, this is what we spent on it. Retirement plan income, we allocated $3,000 for you. So in a bird's eye, this person knows exactly what the company put out for them, and this is probably, this $10,000 is over and above salary.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a nice increment, that supplements salary. But in your case, Christa, if you're dealing with a small entrepreneur, the small neighborhood merchant, or a carpenter, or a plumber, you serve that function of communicating back to him and tell him what he's got, what he's built up in retirement.
Well, what we do, and it's all in compliance with the law, we act as consultants, and we prepare statements that give you the same type of information, but the benefits might just not be there. I mean, we're not talking about a dental plan or a 401k for the very small company. We're giving them the information that they are entitled to get pursuant to the law. In our case, most of the time, it's the insurance benefits that are provided as part of the pension plan and the pension savings funds.
I'd like to share something with the three of you. You're a very professional panel, and I really appreciate your coming in. I think people having an opportunity to listen to you on TV tonight have a real service. I'd like to share something with you. I really think it's a shame. In a large company, a lot of skill and a lot of brain power has gone into this kind of design to get the maximum opportunity for the employee. You know, you meet the average person who worked for telephone for 25 years. They have a very nice retirement program usually in place. And one of the crimes, it seems to me, is the average guy on the street, the average John Doe, doesn't know how to do this for himself.
Well, you know, we're not that far away from perhaps a network that becomes available for the average guy on the street. I mean,
How?
well, through computer software programs. It's not unusual for people to have computers now. The price of computers is such that more and more people are getting them. They're a little like color TVs were in the
But all right, someone has a
past.
computer, and then what? I don't
Well,
understand.
they would buy a software program that would help them to do their own individual planning.
Really?
We have companies now that are working with interactive computer systems so that they give information to the employee, then the employee goes to the computer and with a menu of activities uses the computer to make their own decisions and to find out things about them. And with cable television and the advent of two-way communication, which is on the horizon, there may be an entire business that springs up in this media that does nothing but service the average guy on the street so that he can get information.
Could you fellas help us design a program here on the Money Corner that would not elaborate, but show a little more of that?
We could design a very simple design.
Yeah, I don't want you to spend a lot of money on it, but that really would be a great public service.
And show you exactly how you could go into the program and make those types of projections that
Really?
We had talked about earlier, certainly.
Gee, that sounds great. Well, we're at the end of the segment. I'm sorry. It's been a very interesting show for me. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope the panel has enjoyed it. I'll be back here on the Money Corner again next week. Have a good week, and we'll have another, what I hope will be valuable program on finance for you. Good night.